China has spent over 3/4 of a century transforming from a poor agricultural backwater to a global economic powerhouse. At the heart of this meteoric rise lies a key policy instrument, the five-year plans. Since the early 1950s, China has charted its progress into 14 planning cycles, with a blueprint for the 15th set to be introduced at a key party meeting this October. So how have the five-year plans changed China, and how have the plans themselves evolved along the way? The story of the five-year plans began with a singular focus, addressing the urgent need for economic growth in a nation long plagued by poverty and foreign invasion. The top priority above all else, industrialization. In 1953, the first five-year plan kick-started with an almost fantastical ambition, as it outlined over 150 industrial projects to be achieved from the ground up. In just 5 years, the country witnessed one milestone after another. China's first domestically produced truck, airplane, and steam locomotive rode off the assembly lines. Its first oil refinery, machine tool plant, and vacuum tube factory were brought into being. For the first time in history, a bridge spanned the nation's longest river, while modern roads extended across the roof of the world. Since then, every such five-year plan was tuned to the economic growth of its own era, as the country arising from the century of humiliation strove to compress centuries of Western industrialization process into just decades. However, things started to change as China's economy came to embrace market elements, as the reform and opening up kicked in the late 1970s. Consequently, the name of the plan came out differently since 1981. It was not just a five-year plan for economic development, but for economic and social development. It was a sign of market shifts. Instead of merely binding targets for economic and industrial indices, the plans began to include broader goals of social equality, environmental protection, cultural enrichment, and national governance. The seventh five-year plan started to pour substantial investment into universities, laying the foundation for the remarkable expansion and modernization of China's higher education. Its momentum continues to shape the nation's academic landscape to this day. Another striking example is the 13th five-year plan, spanning 2016 to 2020. It went down in history as a period of development that tamed the world's factory's infamous air pollution, while ultimately lifting nearly 100 million people out of absolute poverty. The plans became as all-encompassing as they were epoch-making. In 2006, another revolutionary shift occurred as the 11th iteration of the five-year plan was promulgated. The Chinese expression of the word plan switched from 计划, which emphasized prescriptive, exhaustive directives, to 规划, highlighting strategic visions that induce changes. It was another tiny tweak in wording, but yet another giant leap in governance mindset. The five-year plans no longer micromanage the output and distribution of steel, cement, fertilizers, along with most of the other industrial products and commodities. The onerous duty of resource allocation has been left to the invisible hand of the market. The plans were now laser-focused on delivering public goods, cultivating industries of strategic importance, and guiding the overall direction of the nation's development. While the 13th five-year plan curbed the surging pollution, the 14th sought to accelerate China's green transition through carbon reduction, which helped foster a world-class electric vehicle industry that remains largely privately owned. China's pivot to science-tech innovation in the latest two plans also brought about a series of technological breakthroughs. Notably, a domestically developed AI model born from this drive marked another Sputnik moment in the West, with its algorithm now leading the world in this future-defining industry. By the time the 14th five-year plan was unveiled, the world was astonished that China had emitted a GDP growth target for the first time in such a development blueprint. There are now fewer records to tally, but more miracles to work. Unlike those mired in short-termism, China approaches governance as a relay race. Its five-year plans pass the baton in measured rhythms, each seamlessly interlocking with the next. The five-year plan started out as a midterm economic roadmap, but it has been increasingly fused into the longer vision of nation building. China's 14th Five-Year Plan spanning 2021 and 2025 was unleashed alongside a Vision 2035. It was in effect the beginning of China's new two-step march. The first step would be basically realizing socialist modernization by 2035, in other words, through 3 five-year plans. As the 14th Five-Year Plan period is concluding on a high note, the 15th Five-Year Plan is about to help Chinese modernization break new ground on all fronts. Another 5-year plan, a new outlook for China, is on the horizon.